Can you refresh and kill him again? Click. No, no, no. Yeah. Still should be broadcasting. Now the link in your channel again. Not about security. What happened? Okay, now guarantee the time is already gone. Let's see. Inshallah, it is going to go.
Well, honest, no, sorry, I'm not doing PhD actually. I'm just doing my own self-learning and also doing some education videos for the children and like the startups and like some like the adults things as well. So just learn and teach, and this is what I'm doing right now. So I learn and then I teach. The private Mawan, Abdullah. MashaAllah, how are you doing? How is everything? Remember my math academy back in the Marcus, I think I'm still doing that online. Trying to.
National cannot from here link.
Alhamdulillah. Take care. Good to hear from you. Inshallah.
So it's going to disconnect me. I'll just disconnect myself before you disconnect me. Before you kick me out. Yeah, I think maybe you can configure it to do that. I'm not sure. I think it shouldn't be. What is happening? How come it is second time? But is Muslim in Amako without the mic. Okay. Alright, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Rasulullah عليه وسلم وأنبياء الله أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري قال عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, brother. All right, so inshallah we're going to continue what we started doing. Just trying to maybe revise back to what we did or revisit what we did last week on Friday. Try to understand what is Android app development. And I told you that Android app development is a kind of, we can say discipline because right now it is a discipline, but because people learn how to do it. So it's just a way for us to be able to develop applications that are meant for Android phones. And we try to understand what is Android phone. So when we talk about Android phone, we're referring to Google phones. Google actually is the sole owner of Android, uh, we can say, or maybe it is not because actually it is supposed to be open source because they didn't really license it to anybody. They didn't say that you have to pay before you use it. So it is an open source software, but then developed by Google. The one that they are working on, they actually try to kind of um, use other companies or sell it, or maybe kind of partner with other companies who are co-manufacturers of Google phones, they call them. So they put that Android on them, and they make it an operating system which will work on phones, regardless of whether they belong to anyone or they are meant for any company. So previously, before now, what used to happen is that people will have to license softwares for their own devices. So for example, if you want to develop a phone or you want to manufacture a phone, you need to go to the software company or the operating system company and tell them that you want to use the operating system, for example, Windows. And then after that, they will give you the permission to use the operating system on their on your phone, which you manufacture. So previously, we said that I tried to bring the example of Windows operating system so that you can understand best what a Google operating system is. So I mentioned to you that we have Windows versions of applications. So for example, DOS is an operating system, Windows 95, 98, Millennium Edition, and Windows NT 2000, XP, Vista, Windows 7, up to the Windows 10 that we have today. They are all operating systems owned by Microsoft, and they are used on computers. But anybody who want to use Windows will have to go to Microsoft and get a license to use that window on his computer. So that is how Windows is developed. And I gave you the history of Windows. What happened was that IBM actually contracted Windows or Microsoft to develop an operating system for them, which they were supposed to pay them. But then Bill Gates, being the person that he used to be, a canny businessman as they call him, he didn't sell it to IBM but licensed it to them, meaning that each and every time they manufacture a new computer that has DOS on it, IBM will have to give them 5% off the DOS, and then that way DOS became the base system on computers because this is the main operating system at that time, alongside, of course, Apple. So what happened was after that, Microsoft and IBM did not continue. Okay, so as I was telling you, Rankede, so uh, in the same way that we have Windows, this is the same way that actually we have. Okay, so previously, as I was telling you, Windows, when IBM and Microsoft, when they kind of went away, or maybe when Microsoft came up with Windows 95 at that time, or Windows 3.0, if I can remember well. At that time, IBM did not take that operating system from them in the same deal. So what they did was actually they just allow Windows to go on their own, and Windows become a company that is a software developing company. Actually, they gave or operating system developing company. They gave out the Windows to people for free to install on DOS. So what happened actually was at that time, if you have DOS or if you have a computer, you can install Windows because most of the computers at that time, they were running Windows, sorry, DOS on them. So it became a free operating system that people can just take and install. And previously, before Windows, actually the tradition was that you're going to be typing commands to be able to communicate with the computer. So they came up with a graphical user interface whereby you can actually use graphics to click and use your own to communicate with the computer. So you can click on icons, you can kind of do things with the mouse and all that. All right. So this is actually how operating system continued developing. So they kept making that operating system better, and they came up with Windows 95, then 98, the Millennium Edition, and then Windows NT came about on up to the Windows 10 that we have. So these versions that we are seeing on Windows, they can be called, or this Windows that we are seeing, 95, then by years, we can say they're actually similar to what we are seeing today with Android, whereby we have versions of the Android phone. So you have, for example, version 4.1. Now we have version 10. Uh, but then at the time when Google started this operating system, they actually used to call them with names of desserts. So, for example, they have Jelly Bean, they have, sorry, what do you call it? They have uh, sandwich, they have mush, is it marshmallow or marshmallow? Marshmallow, and all those. So they have KitKat, which is 4.1. So this is actually how they used to name their own operating systems up till now that they started calling them with numbers. So the recent one they're calling the Android 10 instead of Android Q, as against what they used to do to call them desserts. And then we said that we are going to. I mean, we mentioned we tried to. We said Android phones are Google phones. So why do we say that Google phones? So any phone manufactured or co-manufactured with Google running Google Android operating system. So the operating system belongs to Google. They use Linux, which is open source, meaning that it is not licensed. Anybody can take it and tweak it the way he wants. And they develop Android on top of Linux. And what they did actually is that when they develop it, they kind of get co-manufacturing companies that we call them OEMs, which are original equipment manufacturers. For example, HTC, uh, Samsung, LG, Motorola, and Huawei. These are like phone manufacturing companies that manufacture phones. So what they did was they actually take the operating system and they co-partner with them to make phones. So what they did is actually they kind of do it in a different way. They said, okay, we have the Android dev phones, which are Android developed phones. So anybody who wants to just be able to use operating system on a phone can just go and take that Android and use it on any phone. So if you want to be a developer, you can just go and take it and use it. And then they also have their own phones, which they call them Google phones. So actually they have like series of them. So for example, they call the first versions Nexus. So Nexus are phones that were manufactured by both Google and what do you call them? These co-manufacturers, which we call them OEMs. So that original equipment manufacturers, but then Google put the operating system on their phones. So the ones that belong to Google, which they co-manufacture with those companies, they call them Nexus phones. And actually, those companies as well, they have their own phones that they kind of maybe put that operating system on them. They call them with their own company names. And then up till 2016, it now has been the tradition. They used to call them Nexus, and then they changed it to Pixel phones. So in 2016, Google tried to develop their own phones made by Google phones, which is meaning that it is manufactured by Google, and they call them Pixels. So actually, then when they have that, when they have those Pixel phones, they actually also came up with things like tablets and laptops, and we have like Chrome OS, which is on the laptops, and we have the Android, which is on the tablets and the phones. Um, So they started calling them Pixel, and up to now, that they still call those equipment that is made by Google. They call them Pixel devices. All right. So this is actually how this development came about, and so Google have their operating system, and what they did was, because this is an open source software, or it is something that is, it really took a lot of, I would say maybe people really kind of, yeah, are you laughing? Yeah, people get to have phones produced cheap because as against what we used to have, people used to have to license with other companies that need to give them license to run operating systems. Now we have Android, which people can just manufacture phones and put on them. So that gave, what do you call that? Gave really Android a very, very good market base because many people were came and continue using Android at that time. And for that reason, um, we have a lot of developments that kept coming in. So people wanting to take advantage of those phones, and that is why Google came about Android Studio. They develop an environment that people can go and develop applications that can work on those Android phones. So this is where Android app development came about. So at first it was just a platform that people can use to develop Android phones, Android applications for those companies that Google used to co-manufacture with them. But then it become actually open as well, so you can just go and download it and develop your application without having to license anything with Google. The only thing is those who want to have like a very good audience of the applications, they need to publish those applications on what is called Android Market or Google Play Market or Play Store. So just like you have Apple Store, you have Microsoft Store, Android also they have their own store where you can, Google they have their own store where you can publish applications developed for Android phones. So what Google is doing is they will look at your application and they will kind of maybe say, okay, this is certified by Google, but you don't have to pay anything. But then when you do that, Google will have the right to advertise on those, to the people that are using your application. So what they did, they allow you to publish on Google Store to get better audience, but then they will be able to advertise on your own platform. So when people use your application, they can get advertisements from Google. And the Android Studio is actually called IDE, which is an integrated development environment. This is an environment that people use to go and develop Android applications on them. That is IDE. And then this actually IDE, they came with something called emulators. Emulator is a replica of a phone where you can, instead of having to maybe have a phone to test your application, you can just simply go on this Android Studio. It has an emulator that you can use to simulate what you do. So if you're developing an app and you want to test and see how is the functionality of that application, you may just go out and test it on that emulator. So it's just like another phone that you have on what do you call it on that emulator. So you have another like a soft phone, we can call it, that you can see. It will have the same interface that you have, the same face as the phone that you have on you. So if you have, for example, now your phone is A10. If you look, you might have an emulator for Samsung A10. And when you open that emulator, it is going to look exactly like your phone. So whatever you do, whatever you see on that emulator is what you're going to see on the phone. So the VC, what you see is what you're going to get on your own phone. So that is how it is. And actually, you can download it you can install that Android Studio. It's an application that can be on either Mac or Windows or Linux computer or the Chrome OS, which is the computer that is manufactured by Google. So that is how Android Studio came about. And actually, this is how you use it. So you can install it on a computer and develop your application. After developing the application, you're going to be able to run it or to test it. And then after that, if you want, you may either get what is called an APK. APK APK actually is like for is a file that you can have, which is going to be executable. So for example, for Windows, if you want to install an application on Windows, it needs to be an exe file. So for example, if you want to install Microsoft Office for the first time, you need to go and click on the executable file of Microsoft Office. So what Android is actually, they have like what is called APK. So APK is only, you cannot install APK on a computer because it is not designed for a computer. It is designed for phones and tablets. So you need to give people that APK file, maybe through sharing with them or sending it to them, and they can download it. And once they download it, if it is in an Android phone, it will detect that it is an installable application from. Yes. So for example, as I said that you may either be able to publish your app on Google Play Store, which is the Google Market, and you can download it from the Google Market for it to be installed directly from Google Market. Or you can share the file, which is the application file. That is the APK. Is an application file that you can actually share with people, and people can install that application directly from the file, as against having to install it from the Play Store. Yes. So it's the same way that you're uh, you're you're installing from what do you call it? Subhanallah. Um, you're installing from the Google Store. That is the same way that you're installing on the APK. But the only thing is, for APK, the phone is going to install it, and it will maybe tell you that okay, this is not really a secure file because it is not certified by Google. Yes, because it didn't go to the Google market, so Google did not really check and see whether it is uh, whether it is a safe application or not. And what do you call it? They will just kind of, it can be installed, but then it is not going to be certified by. So people are not going to maybe very, very, uh, because we are used to installing from Android market, right, without any warning. So this is going to warn you that it's not a certified. Maybe it is not certified secure, or maybe it is not tagged as secure by Google, but you can still install it now. So it's like the kit that you're installing. So it is called an AP Android package kit. That is what APK stands for. All right. So as I said, it can be installed on either Windows or Apple computers or Linux computers or on a Chrome operating system. So once you install it, you'll be able to run it the same way you install any application. And then once you load it, it is going to come up with something called the welcome screen. And then, as I said, you can either use the Android Studio to either start you may either start a new Android Studio project, or you may open an existing one, or you'll be able to import maybe an example code sample to change it to how you want it to be. And then after that, you'll be able to create a project, and you can give it a project name. You can also uh, kind of connect a domain, because if you're going to have to install it on, if you're going to have to publish it to Google Play, you need a domain to do that. But if you're just giving the file to people, you don't need the domain, because Google needs to certify your domain and make sure that you're existing, maybe developer or something, for them to have like a way to track you or something like that. That is how it is. And then after that, you'll be able to uh, select what is your target device. So are you developing for TV? Because now we have Android TV, we have Android smartphones, we have Android smartwatches, and a lot of applications a lot of devices that use Android operating system. So if we have a possibility of having a phone that runs on Android OS. So you can choose to develop either for Android phones, for TV, and you'll be able to choose on which version of the OS are you, developing this application for. So as we said, some applications might not work maybe on Windows 8 because they are having a functionality which is not designed for Windows 8. Maybe it has like some, like some maybe additional things that are not compatible with Windows 10. So you need to choose which version of the operating system you're developing the application for. And actually, Google even did something because they have a statistics of whoever um, installed the OS on his computer or in his device. They can tell you how many percent of the devices in the world are using the maybe, for example, the version of Android the version of the Android OS that you're developing that application for. So, for example, you will know how many people can your application reach. So, if you see that 30% of maybe the people on the Android market are using a certain version of Android OS, you know that the application will only reach those people, right? Or can only be used by those people. So this is how you can get to know where your application can reach. Then after that, you'll be able to actually start your project. And you can start either by choosing an activity, which activity is maybe what you're using the app for. So for example, you have many different activities and many different applications. If we are going to talk about things like maybe Grab app, which we have on our phones right now in Malaysia. Grab app, it has a lot of functions or activities. For example, you can choose to use a map, which is an activity on its own. So it's a module that you can use to integrate map in your own application. So anything you want to do, you may need to get an activity for that. So for example, if you're using database or using some things which have to do with maybe marketing or it has to do with e-commerce, you may need to have a module that is going to work for you. That is going to help you to do that. So that is an activity. So that is how under development is. That is, in a nutshell, how under application, what is under application and how people do under app development. And yeah, that is all about what maybe we can say as an introduction to how it works. So what we can do, inshallah, is next time we're going to install the studio so that we can kind of, give an overview of how it works, inshallah. So barakallah fikum. I think that is all we can stop. Inshallah, we can continue by Wednesday, inshallah. Wednesday. Jazakumullah khairan.